Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please, we just hold on. Maharaj will soon be here. We start soon. Sudam, are you ready?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, yes I am.
Okay, so I'm giving you host right away.
Yeah, thank you.
So you can click on recording.
Yes.
Now you have it. Please click. Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thanks.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare
Harebo, Ayush Mataji, can you please click on record in your computer, please? Ayush Mataji, can you please, are you there?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Now you can record, please. Hare Krishna.
Okay, sir, Prabhuji. Thank you.
राम राम हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Prema Kishori, you raise your hand. You want to say something, please? We are waiting for Maharaj to come. It's not yet
Hare
here.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Sorry, it's by mistake.
Okay.
Sorry.
I thought you wanted to say something about Maharaj. So we are waiting for Maharaj. He will soon be here. So we have patience, please.
Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
Nice to see you, Guru Maharaj. How are you doing? How is your health?
I'm very fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Nice to see you again.
Nice to be with you.
So I will mute everybody so there will be no noise in the background except you, Your Holiness.
Okay. But I would request the devotees, as far as possible, to put on their cameras so I can see their moon-like faces. It will be more personal.
Yes. Thank you, Maharaj. Now we can start, please.
Okay. So I will begin by singing the Mangala Charana prayers and leading a short kirtan. And then I will speak on Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupa Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Cha Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Devshatarine Namaste Saraswati Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. 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 Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Srila Gurudeva. Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Srila Gurudeva. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhansa Pariprajakacharya Stotra Satasvi Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhansa Pariprajakacharya Stotra Satasvi Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. So I would like to extend a special warm welcome to His Holiness Bhakti Dear Damodar Swami Maharaj, who is honoring us with his association, at least for some time. I will be back in a minute, and then we will speak on Srimad Bhagavatam.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama.
Okay. So we shall read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Text 12. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Aho Kashtam Aho Nyay Aho Kashtam Aho Nyayam Yad Yuyam Dharmanandana Jivitum Narhata Klishtam Vipradharma Chutashraya Aho Kashtam Aho Nyayam Yad Yuyam Dharmanandana Jivitum Narhata Klishtam Vipradharma Chutashraya. Aho, oh, Kashtam, what terrible sufferings. Aho, oh, Anyayam, what terrible injustice. Yet, because Yuyam, all of you good souls, Dharma Nandana, sons of religion personified, Jivitum, to remain alive, Na, never, Arhata, deserve, Klishtam, suffering, Vipra, Brahmanas, Dharma, piety, Achuta, God, Ashraya, being protected by. Translation. Bhishma Dev said, Oh, what terrible sufferings and what terrible injustices you good souls suffer for being the sons of religion personified. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations, yet you were protected by the Brahmanas, God, and religion. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj Yudhisthira was disturbed due to the great massacre in the battle of Kurukshetra. Just to set the scene, Grandfather Bhishma was lying on the bed of arrows, preparing to leave his body when he so desired. And the Pandavas and Lord Krishna himself personally came to see Grandfather Bhishma. And in this context, Grandfather Bhishma is addressing the Pandavas in the presence of Lord Krishna. So Maharaj Yudhisthira was disturbed due to the great massacre in the battle of Kurukshetra. Bhishma Dev could understand this, and therefore he spoke first of the terrible sufferings of Maharaj Yudhisthira. He was put into difficulty by injustice only. And the battle of Kurukshetra was fought just to counteract this injustice. Therefore, he should not regret the great massacre. He wanted to point out particularly that they were protected by the Brahmins, the Lord, and religious principles. So this is also an instruction for us. Here, Grandfather Bhishma is saying that the Pandavas did not deserve to remain alive under those circumstances, but they were protected by the Brahmanas, God, and religion. And that is also our protection. In fact, there's a beautiful verse in Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by Prahlad Maharaj to Lord Nrsingadev. Balasya neha pitaro sharanam nrsinga. In fact, it's so relevant, I think I'll read it. On the subject of protection. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 9. Prahlad pacifies the Lord with prayers. Balasya neha sharanam pitaro nrsinga nartasya chagadam udanvati majato no taptasya tat pravidir ya ihanjaseshtas twad vibhotanu britam twad Upekshitanam. Translation. My Lord Nrsingadev, O Supreme, because of a bodily conception of life, embodied souls neglected and not cared for you cannot do anything for their betterment. Whatever remedies they accept, although perhaps temporarily beneficial, are certainly impermanent. For example, a father and mother cannot protect their child. A physician and medicine cannot relieve a suffering patient, and a boat on the ocean cannot protect a drowning man. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Through parental care, through remedies for different kinds of disease, and through means of protection on the water, in the air, and on land, there is always an endeavor for relief from various kinds of sufferings in the material world, but none of them are guaranteed measures for protection. They may be beneficial temporarily, but they afford no permanent benefit. Despite the presence of a father and mother, a child cannot be protected from accidental death, disease, and various other miseries. No one can help, including the parents. So I happened to be in Srila Prabhupada's room in Juhu, at the back of the property. And in the distance, Srila Prabhupada heard a child crying. Not on our property, but somewhere in the distance. And Srila Prabhupada immediately quoted this verse, Balasyaneha Sharanam Pitaro Nrsimha. Srila Prabhupada saw the world through the eyes of the Shastra, and he related the crying of the child to this verse, that the parents no doubt would want the child to be free from suffering and distress, whatever was causing the child to cry. But actually, even the parents cannot help. Ultimately, only the Lord can help. So coming back to the purport, no one can help, including the parents. Ultimately, the shelter is the Lord, and one who takes shelter of the Lord is protected. And that was the case of the Pandavas, as Grandfather Bhishma is saying, in effect, to them. No, ultimately the shelter is the Lord, and one who takes shelter of the Lord is protected. This is guaranteed. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 9:31, Konteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. Therefore, unless one is protected by the mercy of the Lord, no remedial measure can act effectively. One should consequently depend fully on the causeless mercy of the Lord Although as a matter of routine duty, one must, of course, accept other remedial measures. No one can protect one who is neglected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this material world, everyone is trying to counteract the onslaught of material nature, but everyone is ultimately fully controlled by material nature. Therefore, even though so-called philosophers and scientists try to surmount the onslaught of material nature, they have been unable to do so. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 13:9 that the real sufferings of the material world are four: Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, birth, death, old age, and disease. So this statement that Srila Prabhupada is quoting here in the purport from the Bhagavad Gita is from Lord Krishna's description of the process of knowledge given in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, Dukkha, Dosh, Anudarshanam, to be conscious of the miseries and faults of birth, death, disease, and old age is part of the process of knowledge. And at the end of the discussion of the process of knowledge, Lord Krishna says that anything else is ignorance. So we should be aware of these miseries. It's part of the process of knowledge, and it's part of our spiritual advancement. So coming back to the purport here, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 13:9 that the real sufferings of the material world are four: Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, birth, death, old age, and disease. In the history of the world, no one has been successful in conquering these miseries imposed by material nature. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasaha. Nature, Prakriti, is so strong that no one can overcome her stringent laws. So-called scientists, philosophers, religionists, and politicians should therefore conclude that they cannot offer facilities to the people in general. They should make vigorous propaganda to awaken the populace and raise them to the platform of Krishna consciousness. That's what the scientists, philosophers, religionists, and politicians should be doing. Our humble attempt, Srila Prabhupada is speaking, our humble attempt to propagate the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world is the only remedy that can bring about a peaceful and happy life. We can never be happy without the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Twad upekshitanam. If we keep displeasing our Supreme Father, we shall never be happy within this material world in either the upper or lower planetary systems. So we all want protection, and the only guaranteed protection is that of the Lord. And therefore, Grandfather Bhishma addresses the Pandavas that you did not deserve to be alive in such circumstances, but you were protected by the Brahmanas, God, and religion. So coming back to the purport to today's verse, as long as they, the Pandavas, were protected by these three important items, there was no cause of disappointment. Thus, Bhishmadev encouraged Maharaj Yudhisthira to dissipate his despondency. As long as a person is fully in cooperation with the wishes of the Lord, guided by the bona fide Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, and strictly following religious principles, no one has cause for despondency, however trying the circumstances of life. Bhishmadev, as one of the authorities in the line, wanted to impress this point upon the Pandavas. So Bhishmadev is one of the authorities in the line. In fact, he is one of the 12 Mahajans, Swayambhu, Narada, Shambhu, Kapila. And he could speak with authority to encourage Maharaj Yudhisthira and the other Pandava brothers that although they did not deserve to remain alive under such circumstances, they were protected by the Brahmanas, God, and religion. And that should be our mood of surrender. We surrender to the Lord and depend on his protection. As Srila Prabhupada said in the purport to 7.9.19, one must, of course, accept other remedial measures. That is our duty. But they cannot be effective without the mercy of the Lord. Now, on the subject of miseries and trials and tribulations, even faced by devotees, I thought to read the purport to Srimad Bhagavatam 3:16-37, which is very instructive. Srila Prabhupada says, when something is arranged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one should not be disturbed by it, even if it appears to be a reverse according to one's calculations. This is Bhishmadev's instruction to the Pandavas, exactly. When something is arranged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one should not be disturbed by it, even if it appears to be a reverse according to one's calculations. For example, sometimes we see that a powerful preacher is killed, or sometimes he is put into difficulty, just as Haridas Thakur was. He was a great devotee who came into this material world to execute the will of the Lord by preaching the Lord's glories. But Haridas was punished at the hands of the Qazi by being beaten in 22 marketplaces. Similarly, Lord Jesus Christ was crucified, and Prahlad Maharaj was put through so many tribulations The Pandavas, who were direct friends of Krishna, lost their kingdom. Their wife was insulted, and they had to undergo many severe tribulations. Seeing all these reverses affect devotees, one should not be disturbed. Seeing all these reverses affect devotees, one should not be disturbed. One should simply understand that in these matters, there must be some plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhagavatam's conclusion is that a devotee is never disturbed by such reverses. He accepts even reverse conditions as the grace of the Lord. One who continues to serve the Lord, even in reverse conditions, is assured that he will go back to Godhead, back to the Vaikuntha planets. Now here in this last statement, Srila Prabhupada is referring indirectly to another very important verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10:14:8. This verse is quoted by Srila Prabhupada, well, by Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or by Srila Prabhupada in the Nectar of Devotion. And in the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada says that this verse should be the guide of all devotees. So I'll just read the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Tate nukampam susamikshamano punjana evat mrikatam vipakam hridvagvapubir vidadan namaste jive tayo muktipade sadayabak. This is Lord Brahma's prayer to Lord Krishna. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. So, Mukti Pade means the position of liberation, and Daya Bak means the rightful heir, H-E-I-R, inheritor, the rightful heir. And in his commentary on this verse, Srila Sridhar Swami, I believe, says, Jiveta, one simply has to remain alive in devotional service by chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord and following the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. Jiveta, one simply has to remain alive in devotional service. In other words, one simply has to persevere in one's spiritual practices. And Yamukti Pade Sadaya Bhak. He earns the right to enter the kingdom of God, just as a son has only to remain alive long enough, and he will inherit the Father of the property. So, my dear devotees, we should persevere in Krishna consciousness, even if there are difficulties and apparent reverses. And therefore, in the purport to Srimad Bhagavatam 3:16-37, Srila Prabhupada says, seeing all these reverses affect devotees, one should not be disturbed. One should simply understand that in these matters there must be some plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhagavatam's conclusion is that a devotee is never disturbed by such reverses. He accepts such reverse conditions as the grace of the Lord. And here Prabhupada is, making the same point as Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-8. One who continues to serve the Lord, even in reverse conditions, is assured that he will go back to Godhead, back to the Vaikuntha planets. So sometimes there are calamities. We have all experienced that in our lives in one way or another. But a devotee is not disturbed by the calamities because he is aware of the plan of the Lord and also the protection of the Lord. And in fact, Queen Kunti prayed for calamities in her prayers to Lord Krishna, Srimad Bhagavatam 1:8-25. She says, Vipada santuta shashvat tatra jagat guru bhavato darshanam yat syad apurnar bhavadarshanam. I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated births and deaths. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, for a pious person, if there is some calamity, there is no alternative than to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Constantly remembering the lotus feet of the Lord means preparing for liberation from birth and death. Therefore, even though there are so-called calamities, they are welcome because they give us an opportunity to remember the Lord, which means liberation. One who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, which are accepted as the most suitable boat for crossing the ocean of nescience, can achieve liberation as easily as one leaps over the holes made by the hoofs of a calf. Such persons are meant to reside in the abode of the Lord, and they have nothing to do with the place where there is danger in every step. So in this paragraph of the purport, Srila Prabhupada is alluding indirectly to another beautiful verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, also from Canto 10, Chapter 14. This is verse 58. And it's such a beautiful verse, not only in terms of the meaning, but also in terms of the Sanskrit. And in the old Boston Temple, when I first joined, we would actually sing this verse every morning. as part of our morning program. And so I will sing it now. And again, both the Sanskrit and the meaning are beautiful. Ma Sritaye Pada Palava Plavam Mahat Padam Punya Yasho Murare Bhavam Buddhir Vatsa Padam Param Padam 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 Yadi Padam Natesham Samashvitaye Pada Palava Plavam Mahat Padam Punya Yasho Murare Bhavam Buddhir Vatsa Padam Param Padam 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 Yadi Padam Natesham. And the translation: for those who have accepted the boat of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of the cosmic manifestation and is famous as Murari, the enemy of the Mura demon, the ocean of the material world is just like the water contained in a calf's hoof print. Although there's danger at every step, the devotee crosses right over. Their goal is Vaikuntha, the place where there are no material miseries, not the place where there is danger at every step. So here in this Srila Prabhupada's purport to Queen Kunti's prayer, in which he says, I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again so we could see you again and again. For by seeing you means we will no longer see repeated births and deaths. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, one who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, which are accepted as the most suitable boat for crossing the ocean of nescience, can achieve liberation as easily as one leaps over the holes made by the hoofs of a calf. Such persons are meant to reside in the abode of the Lord, and they have nothing to do with a place where there is danger in every step. And Srila Prabhupada continues in the purport. The material world is certified by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita as a dangerous place full of calamities. Less intelligent persons prepare plans to adjust to those calamities without knowing that the nature of this place is itself full of calamities. They have no information of the abode of the Lord, which is full of bliss and no trace of calamity. The duty of the sane person, therefore, is to be undisturbed by worldly calamities which are sure to happen in all circumstances. Suffering all sorts of unavoidable misfortunes, one should make progress in spiritual realization because that is the mission of human life. If someone is lucky enough, and my dear devotees, you all are extremely fortunate, if someone is lucky enough to get in contact with the Lord by devotional service, it is all gain. Contact with the Lord by any one of the 9 devotional services is always a forward step on the path going back to Godhead. So, my dear devotees, I thank you. I thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to speak on the important verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, spoken by Grandfather Bhishma to the Pandavas in the presence of Lord Krishna. And now, if any of you have any questions or comments, and our first invitation would be to Maharaj, if he has any comments to make. And yes, we can take questions and comments now.
Maharaj, please unmute your mic. Thank you, Maharaj, for a wonderful class. Patidra Dabodara will ask a question or comments, like you said. Maharaj, please. Comment. Maharaj, your mic is muted.
Accept humble obeisances, Maharaj. Thank you for a wonderful class. The association is powerful. This Dev is praying or is giving blessing to you, this Maharaj, that he is protected by God, is protected by Brahmanas, is protected by religion. For me, I feel this is philosophy. How do we explain this? In practice, how do I know what do they really mean that religion is protecting me? Because I don't see religion. God, I may understand. But how do I see that religion is protecting me?
Yes, that's a nice point. There's a statement, Dharma rakshati rakshataha, that if you protect Dharma, Dharma will protect you. Mm-hmm. And that very same word, Dharma, is used by Bhishma Dev in this verse. Dharma rakshati. Yeah, Dharma rakshati rakshataha. That if you protect Dharma, Dharma will protect you. So, yeah, it's sort of like what Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution. And whatever progress we make on the path will be preserved. And even if we're not 100% successful in the present life, of course, we want everyone to be 100% successful in the present life. And we should endeavor for that. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur referred to the story of Bilva Mangal Thakur, Many of you may be aware of his history, but he was born in a high-class Brahmin family, and he had become, quite advanced to the stage of Baba, almost to the perfectional stage. But he became attached to a prostitute. And one night, it was actually the night of his father's funeral ceremony, his mind was on the prostitute. And he was urging the priest, hurry up, fatafat, hurry up, because he wanted to go to the to the prostitute. And that night, there was a raging storm. And to get to the prostitute's house, he had to cross the river. There are many details how he did it. Anyway, he crossed the river, and he came to the house of the prostitute. But she thought it's late, and the weather is so bad, so she thought Bilva Mungo will not come. So she locked up the house. But Bilva Mungo Thakur was so intent, I think he grabbed hold of a snake to scale the wall, and eventually he came to her door, and she let him in. And she said, Bilva Mungo, if you had as much attachment for Krishna as you have for me, it would be much better for you. And those words of the prostitute entered deep into Bilva Mungo Thakur's heart, and he left immediately for Vrindavan. So it is said that Bilva Mungo Thakur's guru from his previous life spoke through the mouth of the prostitute. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that, he was like urging all of his disciples to finish up and go back home, back to Godhead in the very same lifetime. So he doesn't have to come back. So that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur doesn't have to come back and maybe enter the house of a prostitute to save his disciples. So, yes, we should make every endeavor by the grace of the Lord and the devotees to go back home, back to Godhead in this very lifetime. But if we don't, whatever progress we have made is not lost, and we will continue from the point where we left off in this life. We will continue from that point in the next life. Yeah, so there's no loss or diminution. And even a little endeavor saves one from the most dangerous type of fear, which is that one will descend into a lower form of life and miss the opportunity to progress further in Bhakti Yoga.
Thank you, Maharaj, for a good answer. I have one question based on this little endeavor. We protect one from the most dangerous kind of danger, whatever. And in the purport of today, Prabhupada was mentioning, unless one is blessed by the bona fide Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. So my question is, what happens for those living entities who are not following bona fide Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, but they believe in God? They do services to spread the word of God. but the people they are following are not bona fide, will God, Krishna, allow them not to attain his paradise, or there's no benefit at all in their endeavors?
Are you referring to people in other traditions?
Yes, that are not like Vaishnavas, but they believe in God and they believe they are following the right path, but in their heart, they want to serve God. So their endeavors, will Krishna consider their sincerity, although they are following the wrong path?
Yeah. Well, we want to rise to the mode of goodness, and then from the mode of goodness to the transcendental platform. But one of the main obstacles in other traditions is eating meat. And Srila Prabhupada in his discussions with Christians would almost always bring up the point that the Bible says, "Thou shalt not kill," but they are killing animals. And consequently, they will have to come back and suffer. You know, the Gita says, another very important, Yashastra Vidyam Utsrijya, that if one gives up or does not follow the injunctions of the Shastra, na siddhim, na sukham, na param gatim. He will have neither happiness nor perfection, nor attain the param gati, the supreme abode. So it's very important to follow the Shastra. So that was one approach. Thou shalt not kill. They at least they should begin by giving up killing animals. And then the other thing that Srila Prabhupada would say, which is also very practical, is you don't have to give up being a Hindu or Christian or Muslim. You can remain whatever you are, but add this and become a better Hindu or better Christian or better Muslim. And so if they add this, then, they'll definitely be purified and promoted. But if they remain as they are, considering themselves to be whatever, Hindu, Christian, Muslim, and eating meat and, engaging in sinful activities, then they'll have to take birth again and suffer the reactions for their sinful actions.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. There is a question on the chat room from Kajal Srivasa. He said, my humble obeisance, said, Guru Maharaj, he said, a person can serve your vani by following your instructions. But how can someone serve your vapu even being away from you? Kindly guide. Yours aspiring disciple, Kajal Srivasa.
So,
how can one serve your vapu by being far away from you? Although one can follow your instruction, can serve you through your instruction. Funny.
A person can serve your vani by following your instructions. But how can someone serve your vapu even being away from you? That's the question.
Yes.
Well, I think it would be hard to serve the vapu when you're far away. But serving the vani is more important. And if you serve the vani, you'll feel the presence. as Srila Prabhupada wrote in his dedication to Srimad Bhagavatam, dedicated to his spiritual master. He lives forever by his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him. So by following the instructions of the spiritual master, we live with the spiritual master by Vani. As Srila Prabhupada says, Vapu is sometimes appreciable and sometimes not. So we should take advantage of the Vani, not the Vapu. But if you have that opportunity to serve the Vapu, then that can be, that's good if you have that opportunity, but you don't always have that opportunity. So in any and all circumstances, you can serve the Vani, the instructions.
Thank you. There's another question on the chat room from Vanjali. How can a devotee learn not to succumb to negative emotions, feelings, and always remain in Krishna consciousness? Does it mean that a devotee is suppressing negative feelings and emotions? Or is he simply teaching himself to always think of Krishna with gratitude or anger, regardless of his emotions and feelings? The last on the chat room, last question.
Oh, okay. How should a devotee feel when faced with adversity? Well, that's been our topic today, certainly. How can a devotee learn not to succumb to negative emotions and feelings and always remain in Krishna consciousness? Well, by chanting and by taking shelter of the instructions of the Shastra, as we've been discussing. Does it mean that a devotee is suppressing negative feelings and emotions? Not necessarily. Or is he simply teaching himself to always think of Krishna with gratitude or anger, regardless of his emotions and feelings? Well, yes, we should think of Krishna with gratitude. It may be a natural response to become angry if something doesn't go the way we want. But the anger should not be directed towards Krishna. But yeah, we can become angry. Anger also has its place in Krishna consciousness. After the first Delhi Pandal, Srila Prabhupada was staying at a supporter's home, and one young man, American, came to see him, and he began to wax eloquent, and he said, if everyone takes to Krishna consciousness, then everyone will love one another, and there will be no more anger. And Srila Prabhupada replied, is there something wrong with anger? What makes you think there's something wrong with anger? Krishna spoke the whole Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna just to make him angry. Because Krishna wanted him to fight. And you can't fight unless you're angry. So Krishna spoke the whole Bhagavad Gita just to make Arjuna angry. So anger also has its use. in Krishna consciousness, in the service of Krishna. But we shouldn't get angry. We shouldn't be angry with Krishna. That's, but yeah, as you said, with Krishna, we should appreciate his kindness and mercy, and be grateful. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. There is, in our philosophy, we speak about one goes through the reaction of his past deeds. So I've been wondering, what was the past deeds of the Pandavas that they have to take bets and lose their father Pandu at a very young age to go through these sufferings? I never see where there was a story about where their past deed that brought them to this particular suffering. What was the cause?
Yes, in the case of devotees, I mean, not ordinary devotees, but special devotees like the Pandavas, their suffering is not necessarily due to their sinful activities, but rather the suffering that they go through is an arrangement of the Lord to instruct us, ordinary people. Srila Prabhupada uses the phrase to instruct the daughter-in-law by instructing the daughter. So, yeah, suppose suppose a mother-in-law wants to instruct her daughter-in-law. The daughter-in-law may not like it because the relationship is different. So in the presence of the daughter-in-law, the mother-in-law may instruct her own daughter, and because it's her own daughter, her daughter will accept it. And Srila Prabhupada gave this example to illustrate that Krishna will instruct the non-devotees by instructing his devotees. Like the devotees they're like the daughter. And so he may use his devotees as the Pandavas to show how a devotee responds to tribulations. And it's not that they had to go through the tribulations or that they performed some sinful activities that made them liable to suffer reactions, but it's that Krishna is using them to instruct the people in general how devotees remain firm even in the face of adversities. And devotees are surrendered to Krishna. They're ready to serve him in any way he wants. And if he wants to use them in that way, they're ready. There's a very nice talk that Srila Prabhupada gave in which he quoted Narada in a mildly chiding, means you could say like a combination of criticizing and chastising, but chastising would be too strong. But he was mildly chiding Krishna. And Narada was saying, yeah, I can read it. I mean, I could paraphrase it quite closely, but I think it would be better to read it. So, this is from a talk that Srila Prabhupada gave in New Vrindavan in 1969. One who is Krishna conscious is never afraid or disturbed in any condition of life. This is the effect of Krishna consciousness. The pure devotee, if they are put into difficulty, they think this is Krishna's grace. It is Krishna's grace. They take it in this way. I was to suffer hundreds of times more due to my bad activities in my past life, but you are giving me only a little of it. So it is your grace. And then Prabhupada says, hypnotized. It is so nice, hypnotized. Otherwise, these boys, why these boys are working so hard? They can earn money, but they are hypnotized here. Krishna is so nice. He is all attractive. He hypnotizes his devotee. And now I come to the point. Just like the Pandavas, they were all Krishna's friends. Narada met Krishna, and because he was a devotee, he could speak to Krishna with a little criticism. My dear Krishna, by becoming your devotees, have your Pandavas become happy? They have lost their kingdom. Their wife has been insulted, and now they are banished for 12 years. Is it a very good thing? But the wonderful thing I see, in spite of all these inconveniences, they have increased their love for you. So Narada is asking, what kind of hypnotism you do, I do not know. In spite of being placed in so many inconveniences, their love for you has increased. This is the position of a bhakta.
So nice. Thank you, Maharaj. We have a question from Sahadev Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for blessing us again.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. I'll try to ask my question in general sense. We all know how dangerous politics is, but it's also a necessity in human society. So there was a politician here in the States who was shot at gunpoint. Fortunately for him, he did not die. But instead of fighting against gun control, he was actually supporting it because of politics. So here in the pastimes of Bhishma Dev, we read that he supported Duryodhana because of politics in his heart. He was in support of the Pandavas, but because of politics, he supported Duryodhana. So my question is, what specifically was the reason why grandfather Bhishma Dev had to support Duryodhana, and what lessons are we to learn from being in politics, whereby you cannot actually do what you truly want to do? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, grandfather Bhishma was in an awkward situation because he was being maintained by the Kauravas, even though he knew that the Pandavas were right. And Srila Prabhupada comments that the example of Bhishma Dev shows us that however powerful a person may be, he cannot be successful if he's on the wrong side. So that was Bhishma Dev's example. But yes, politics is part of life, but we should avoid politics in the movement. We should definitely avoid politics in the movement. But in life, there is definitely politics. And in fact, I came across a talk by Srila Prabhupada recently in which he speaks about, that sometimes even devotees have to, be involved with politics. But that's not within ISKCON, but that's in the world. And yeah, Srila Prabhupada even encouraged some of his disciples to run for office. Yeah. But I will, when I came across that, I was actually thinking of posting it because it was so instructive that, sometimes as required, devotees can take part in politics. But again, not in ISKCON, but in the world.
Thank you, Maharaj, for your answer. Our next question is from Ayushi. Ayushi, please unmute your mic.
Hare
Go on,
Krishna
please.
Maharaj. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Your voice is very small. Can you increase the volume, please?
Okay. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Kushadas Prabhuji.
Yes, okay.
Please accept my humble obeisances, Guru Maharaj. Happy Ekadashi. Guru Maharaj, my question is that you tell us that we should be able to persevere in the hard situations where we have a lot of trials and tribulations. We should practice this art of having patience and understand that it's a plan of Krishna, and we should take it very positively and not really get bewildered. But I just want to share you that recently, very recently, there was a child in our congregation. She was just 5 years old, and she was put on ventilator, and due to some illness she was put on ventilator, and from the past I guess 5 6 days she was on ventilator. The doctors have declared her brain dead, but her parents have this hope because we are actually chanting for her well-being, but her parents have this hope that she would be all right. Krishna might do some miracle. So my question is that um, I mean, I was quite bewildered because last time when I saw this child in a Sankirtan festival, she was distributing books and she was really attached to Radharani. She was just 5 years old. She is. I do not want to tell she was. She is a very. I mean, I could see her as a very staunch devotee. She was actually distributing books in that Sankirtan festival, and when I saw her, um, a homeless approached her, and the homeless was dancing in that kirtan that was happening in Palo Alto. Then the homeless approached this child and gave all the money to her for the books, and I was like wondering how could this happen. I mean, this is definitely a very very good devotee of the Lord, but now when I see her completely, you know, in a state where she cannot get up, her parents are really crying and they are very bewildered, her mother is completely shattered. So I just want to know that I cannot understand what Krishna's plan is. Of course she's a very good devotee, so what is the lesson that Krishna is trying to give us, and how should we take it, Guru Maharaj?
Well, we don't know for sure, but it sounds like she was a very advanced soul. And maybe she needed only 5 years in this body to be to do whatever little she had to do before going back to Godhead. But of course, it's difficult for the parents. You know, they don't want to lose her. But, you know, they may have to accept the fact. But they should know that she's, you know, gone to a very good place. I mean, you're referring to ISV as kind of Silicon Valley, where Vaisheshika Prabhu is the leader. And I would imagine that, but of course, sometimes if the parents are in too much distress, they're not really able to hear, you know, good instructions. There, I mean, I know that from experience in Bombay, when there was a death. Initially, the family and loved ones are too upset to hear philosophy. So in the initial stage, I wouldn't try to preach to them, so to speak. But afterwards, after they were a little more settled into the reality, then, you know, I could speak to them philosophy. So at this stage, I don't know if her parents would be able to digest any philosophy. They're just absorbed in the thought that they don't want to lose her. But when the time comes, if it does, and if by Krishna's grace she survives, you know, well and good, we'll be blessed by her association. But if she doesn't, then at some stage, you know, we can try to encourage the parents that, you know, she's a very advanced soul and she probably needed only 5 years to do whatever she had to do here and then be ready to go back to Godhead.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. There is a question from YouTube. It says, our philosophy teaches that before we take birth in the material world, we already predestined how much money we're going to have, how long we're going to live on this planet, and when one will die. It's already predestined before being born in the world. So how come the father of Bhishma Dev gives such a blessing for him to die when he chooses to die, if number of years is already predestined before birth? How can a human being give such a boon to his son?
Yes, not everything is predestined. I mean, we have our karma, and so in one sense, we are destined to suffer and enjoy the results of our karma. But we also have our free will. And, you know, Mahabharata says that whatever we enjoy and suffer in this life is 50% from past life and 50% from our present life. And of course, the 50% from our present life is within our hands, how we use our free will. So, and then if we surrender to Krishna, then all that past karma is erased. You know, Sarvadharman prityaja mamekam sharanam braja ham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshayisyami masuja. If you surrender to Krishna, he frees you from all sinful actions and reactions. Like once a palm reader came to our camp when we were traveling with Srila Prabhupada before we got to Juhu land. And so the palm reader, asked if he could read the devotees' palms, because they're supposed to be able to tell the person's future by seeing the lines on the palm. Like there's a lifeline, and all these different lines on the palm have different significance. So Prabhupada said, all right, let's have some fun. The palm reader, he read he gave different predictions about different devotees based on their palms. And, some of the predictions were good and some weren't so good. So some of the devotees were a little concerned. But Prabhupada said, don't worry, just by clapping your hands 3 times in the kirtan, all your lines are wiped away. So, devotees are not subject to karma like that. Or another way Srila Prabhupada explained it is that when you take to devotional service, Krishna, he takes your karma and then he releases it for it, in such a way as to benefit the devotee, which, in a way you could say is not really karma because it's coming from Krishna, but in a way you could say, all right, Krishna's taken your karma, but he's holding it and he's going to release it as it will be beneficial for that devotee. So any way you look at it, it again comes back to taking it as Krishna's mercy. Yeah. I mean,
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
There is a question on the chat room again from Srivasa. If one offer Krishna prasadam to picture of Guru, is it considered vapu seva?
In a way, you could say it is. Yeah, you're feeding the Guru. So that's a nice thought. Yeah. But there's a difference between, actually, well, simultaneously one and different. Yeah, the picture is simultaneously one and different from the person, so it's okay. Yeah.
Sahadev Prabhu, your hand is up.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Again, thank you. You were reading about Narada Muni telling Krishna what has devotees who have surrendered themselves to him gained in life. And he mentioned the Pandavas. They all surrendered to you and look at how much suffering they're going through. And I've been asking the same question over and over again. And of course, I'm nobody to ask Krishna why. But I have no other word to use other than to use the word why. Why does Krishna seem to take so much joy or interest in seeing his devotees go through so much suffering? Mother Yashoda was boiling milk. The milk was boiling over. And it is natural that you attend to the milk to stop it from spilling over. And Krishna became upset. There is a story in the Mahabharata where Krishna and Arjuna were on a trip and they got to a place where there was one devotee of Krishna, and Mataji. All she had was just one cow this cow is just what this Mataji milks and uses the milk to make some money to care for herself. So Arjuna asked Krishna, this Mataji is your devout devotee. Look at how wretched she is. Can't you give her any boon? Krishna told Arjuna, yes, I've already decided to give her a boon, and the boon is I'm going to kill her cow. Because by killing the cow, she is going to be fully dependent on me. My question is, why would Krishna put his devotees into such difficult situations, whereby if somebody is standing at a distance, he will be asking, if this person is actually worshiping God, why is he going through so much tribulations and trials? Hare Krishna Maharaj. It's difficult.
Okay. Well, there's two sides to this answer. As Queen Kunti prayed, you know, that let the calamities come again and again. Yeah, because, yeah, she's prayed, I wish that those calamities would happen again and again so that we could see you, Krishna, again and again. For seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated births and deaths. So often in adversity, we come closer to the Lord. You know, we take more shelter of the Lord. And sometimes when we're very comfortable, we forget the Lord. So, yeah, we have to have faith that the Lord is making the best arrangement for us so that ultimately we can take shelter of him and ultimately go back to Godhead. I wouldn't say that he takes pleasure in seeing his devotees suffer, but he takes pleasure in seeing them depend more fully on him and take more shelter of him, because he knows that that is in their ultimate benefit. As far as your point about other people, that what will other people think, that if you take shelter of Krishna and become a devotee, you have to suffer. Well, there's a reason for that. Because if everyone who took shelter of Krishna was enjoying materially, was benefiting materially, then all sorts of materialistic people would come to Krishna, not to love Krishna, but just so that they would have a good material life. So Krishna doesn't want those kind of people to come to him. He wants people to come to him who are sincere to serve him in any condition. Very interesting points you make.
Thank you, Maharaj, for your wonderful answer. Also, Vanjalia is saying in the chat room, it seems to me that Krishna is giving so much serious test to his devotees, responding to the devotees' desires to serve Krishna. Maybe there is such a test, remembering Krishna, even in the most terrible situation. Just my comments. Vanjali is saying that to her, she feels Krishna, because devotees are praying the opportunity to serve. So Krishna gives tests so they can serve and see how they can stand on the test. It's a comment.
Yes. Well, tests are actually good. In education, some schools have tried to do away with tests, to do without tests. And, create an environment in which the students will naturally want to learn. But the schools found that when they don't give tests, the students don't learn as much. So tests are good. And, for a devotee, the basic test is, are we going to remember Krishna or forget him? And Srila Prabhupada said that in the beginning, Krishna tested me by taking everything away. And then Krishna tested me by giving me everything. And both can be tests. If Krishna takes everything away from you, are you going to chase after what you lost? Or are you going to stay with Krishna? And if Krishna tests you by giving you everything, again, are you going to try to enjoy what Krishna gave you, or are you going to stay with Krishna? So tests are good for us. And the ultimate test is the time of death. Are we going to remember Krishna and take shelter of Krishna at the time of death? And if we pass the final exam, then we go back home, back to Godhead.
Our next question is from Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, please unmute.
Hare Krishna.
Can Maharaj
yes.
see you, please? Your camera is off. Is it possible? Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. You said that we should serve in any condition. One time there was when Keshav Bharati Maharaj was here in Houston giving his Bhagavatam readings, you came to that class and you mentioned something about how there was something in some severe conditions, I think in India somewhere, where it was raining and flooding and there was no transportation, but you kept going. If you can explain, you said that you kept going because, and you got some pleasure because you were doing it for Prabhupada. It was some flooding conditions in India, and you had to do some difficult service. And I don't remember the exact situation, but you mentioned this in class. You remember? You know what I'm talking about?
Well, I mentioned.
Yeah, you mentioned in class where there was some service to be done, and I think it was raining heavily, and there was no taxis or no, and
Oh, I remember that. I remember.
If you please say that again.
Yeah, I had gone to the printer in Calcutta, so we were printing Back to Godhead in Bengali, and the printer was far away in North Calcutta, and our temple was in South Calcutta, and it was pouring rain, and I couldn't get any taxi or auto rickshaw or any transportation. I was just like walking in the rain. And there was not much drainage facility in Calcutta back then, at least where I was. So the water kept getting higher and higher. But I felt blissful. That was the point. I felt blissful because I was doing it for Srila Prabhupada. Sometimes if we're in a comfortable situation, it's not clear. Are we doing this to serve Guru and Krishna, or are we doing it because we're in a nice situation? But in that case, it was a very externally miserable situation, but internally I was very blissful because I knew I was there to serve Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you.
Yes, Maharaj, our next question is from Mena. Mena Jatane, kindly unmute your mic.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Peace of my humble obeisances. Guru Maharaj, I just wanted to make a comment. You mentioned earlier that in whatever way, even if Krishna gives us, makes us go through different tests, we should still be surrendered to him. And I have personally experienced that, Guru Maharaj, that whatever test, actually he gives a test so that you surrender to him more and more. So I have realized that, he makes me go through this. Is always a lesson to learn, that he wants me to give up the attachment to that particular thing, or, depend on him for that thing. And when I do that, I'm much happier.
Wonderful. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Our next question is from Malati Dasi, please. Can you unmute?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Lyrics from humble great people, all yours to share person, all yours to your divine grace. Guru Maharaj, when one is facing, when devotees are facing challenges and tribulations, after the devotee is very successful in facing them and moves ahead and does her devotional service, a devotee feels very relieved that he has passed that test, and he becomes very used to, actually I could say that a problem would come, and that we can bear that problem very nicely. But then suddenly Krishna changes the whole situation and makes it very happy. Actually, the problems are not coming in your life, and you feel scared that what is it? Is Krishna looking at me, or there is your own desire that you wanted to be happy in material life? So it's like so confusing. Krishna changes the whole situation in a moment's time when you really need problems, and that was getting you more closer to Guru and Krishna. So Maharaj, please enlighten us.
Well, yeah, Krishna wants your love, wants your surrender and service, and your love in all circumstances. And the material world is a world of duality. There's pleasure and pain, there's happiness and distress, there's heat and cold. So it can't always be bad, and it can't always be good. But whatever those dualities are, we tolerate them, the good also and the bad also, and remain fixed in our service to Guru and Krishna. And that's our duty, to serve Guru and Krishna. It's not our concern to arrange the situation. In a way, we can arrange the situation to be favorable for our service to Krishna, but not arrange our situations to be materially comfortable or uncomfortable in and of themselves. So, yeah. So what phase are you in? You don't have to. No, I was asking her what phase she's going through, and then I said she doesn't have to answer.
Okay.
Public forum.
Yeah. Thank you,
I
Maharaj.
can write to you personally, Maharaj.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj, for your wonderful class. Any question? Anybody has question on the chat room? Maharaj, I don't know how long you have to be with us. We should let you rest.
No, I'm okay, but I am having some visitors come.
Yes, we should let you rest 2 hours. Thank you so much. So we ask all devotees to kindly unmute yourselves and let's chant Hare Krishna to Maharaj for coming today. Kindly unmute.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama.
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Jai Guru Maharaj. Jai Gauranga. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Panchakalpatarosvyacha.
Sindhya Vacha, Patitanam Pavanabhya, Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha.
His Holiness Giriraj
All
Maharaj
glories
ki.
to Guru
Yeah.
Maharaj. Jai.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
You can carry it for good. You want to read from so far, far.
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Maharaj is still here. Maharaj, you want to say something?
No, I was relishing seeing the groundbreaking ceremony in Juhu.
I'll put it back.
Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare,